Welcome to Embroidered Bag Workshop Lesson 2. We're going to talk a little bit about materials, a little more about materials today. I have in front of me 3 piles of wool, of linen, and of some silk and some odd cotton. I want to talk a little bit about why I choose what I choose. Let's start with the wool. Here's a nice piece of wool. It's a fairly thin weight wool. It's not quite a flannel wool, but you can see it's pretty thin. And it would be known as a bottom weight or something similar. It's really good for appliques. I don't generally use it for bags because it's a little heavy. It's been washed so it doesn't ravel. Here's a heavyweight wool. This is a Melton or coat weight. It's good for the bag bodies and whatnot. Here's another lightweight wool. Again, they've all been washed so that they won't ravel. And the thicker ones are better for the bag bodies. In general, I like the lighter ones for applique, but they're all pretty useful. Here's a piece of wool felt. Now, the difference between wool felt and just felled wool is that this is not a woven thing, and I can pretty much rip it apart with my fingers. And here's what I mean by that. If you throw this into the washer, it's going to scrunch up a little bit, and so when you buy it from the fabric store, you can just pull it apart. It's a felt. It's not woven. And that's not going to be very good for any applique or bag. This fold wool, you can see I can't pull it apart. I can't do anything to it. This is what I mean by something that's been folded up in the washer. It's ready to go and it's pretty strong. It's really good for applique. That's why I advise that this can be useful for padding and whatnot, but it's not good for applique, and I advise a woven for applique. So go ahead, if you're in doubt, throw it in the washer, see what happens to it. Here's some linens. These linens are fairly heavyweight to lightweight, and here's a cotton. I like a fairly middle to heavyweight. ILO 19 is good, nice, fairly even weave. Here's another ILO 1. This is 20. I like them because they are fairly sturdy. They make good lining. They're easy to work with. They're also good for applique. Not a lot of slubs. I kind of avoid slubs. Here's a nice, really nice linen that I've used before. I've used it for lining and for applique. If you can't find linen, you can also use cottons. Here's a medium weight canvas in a color. It's good for applique or it's good for a lining. It's nice and stiff. You just want something that's got some bulk to it and can handle being a bag. Here is a couple of pieces I've got. This is my silk. This is a piece of silk. It's got quite a bit of slub to it. I don't like choosing fabric with slub. These little sort of pilly bits here are what I'm talking about when I mean slub. Mostly because slub is not all that, period. But it's also hard to work with. The other reason that I'll choose a silk is that you can't see through it. If it's a really thin silk and you can see through it, it's not going to really stand up to being used. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. When you can kind of see your hand through it, you're going to have to think about whether or not you want to use that. This particular piece I chose because of the color and because of this fantastic texture, but I'm going to have to worry about where and how I use that. And sometimes I might have to put something underneath to keep the color from behind coming through. In general, you just pick these various bits and see how they work together. Now, one of the reasons why I talk about heavier and lighter weight wools is sometimes you do want a three-dimensionality to something. In this particular applique, parts of this applique have been put over and under each other to kind of give it sort of a three-dimensional aspect. You can kind of see that a little bit. These are fairly thick wools. But as you do that, things start getting thicker and thicker and thicker, and you want to make sure that whatever you did that on can handle that thickness. This is already super thick. I haven't even embroidered on it. So you want to make sure that the bag body can handle it. And so it might be better if you do linens instead of wools, but you can also experiment. And on top of this, I'm probably going to go ahead and put a little bit of silk, just because I don't want to add any more bulk to this area. But in general, there's ways of kind of making things a little more interesting with that extra dimensionality. And so you just have to sort of figure out what you want to do with what it is you're appliquing onto, and then be careful. So again, here's where I would advise getting wool if you're buying it off the internet. Denver Fabrics has coating for the heavier, flannel for lightweight, and they've also got just plain wool or bottom weight. Fabrics.com has Melton. They also have lighter weight too. And then eBay sometimes has stuff. I'm a little careful with it, but just make sure you can see pictures. For linen, my go-to is fabricstore.com, ILO 19 and LILO 20. ILO 20 is the lighter weight. Joanne sometimes has stuff, but you can also use cotton or similar fabrics. They're okay. I don't have a great place for silks right now. I just sort of catch as catch can, and eBay is sometimes my go-to. All right, that's it. On to lesson 3, where we'll start doing some applique. If you have any questions, you can get me at Laurelyn at recreatedartifacts.com, and I'll see you next lesson.